A single woman, a broken promise, and a war that would shape mythology forever. This is the story of the Trojan War, the legendary conflict that inspired some of the greatest tales ever told. Our story begins in ancient Greece, where beauty was believed to have the power to change the world, and no one was said to be more beautiful than Helen, the queen of Sparta. Far away in the wealthy city of Troy lived a young prince named Paris. According to Greek mythology, Paris was asked to judge which of three goddesses, Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite, was the most beautiful. Each offered him a reward. Hera promised power, Athena offered wisdom and victory in battle, but Aphrodite made the most tempting promise of all. She vowed to give him the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris chose Aphrodite. The problem was that Helen, the woman Aphrodite promised him, was already married to King Menelaus of Sparta. Soon after, Paris traveled to Sparta. Whether Helen fell in love with him or was abducted depends on which version of the myth you believe. But one thing is certain: Paris returned to Troy with Helen by his side. For Menelaus, this was more than a personal betrayal. It was an insult to all of Greece. He called upon the Greek kings, who had once sworn an oath to protect Helen's marriage. Led by his brother, King Agamemnon, they assembled one of the greatest armies the ancient world had ever seen. More than 1,000 ships sailed across the Aegean Sea toward Troy. Thus began the Trojan War. For 10 long years, the Greeks laid siege to the city. The walls of Troy were nearly impossible to break, and both sides suffered heavy losses. Among the Greek warriors stood Achilles, a hero whose fighting skills were unmatched. Legend says he was nearly invincible except for one vulnerable spot: his heel. Defending Troy was Prince Hector, a brave warrior who fought not for glory, but to protect his family, his people, and his homeland. Eventually, the two greatest champions met in battle. After a fierce duel, Achilles defeated Hector, dealing Troy a devastating blow. Yet, even without its greatest defender, the city refused to surrender. Years passed, and the Greeks still could not breach Troy's mighty walls. Then, one man proposed a daring plan. His name was Odysseus. Instead of attacking by force, he relied on deception. The Greeks built a massive wooden horse and pretended to sail away, leaving it outside the gates of Troy as what appeared to be a peace offering. Believing the war was finally over, the Trojans celebrated their victory and dragged the giant horse inside the city. But hidden inside were elite Greek soldiers. That night, while the people of Troy slept, the soldiers climbed out of the horse, opened the city gates, and signaled the returning Greek army. By dawn, Troy was in flames. The 10-year war was finally over. The Greeks had won. But for the man whose brilliant plan ended the war, the greatest challenge was only about to begin. The Trojan War was finally over, and the Greek kings began sailing home. Among them was Odysseus, the brilliant king of Ithaca, whose clever plan with the Trojan horse had brought victory to the Greeks. Returning home should have taken only a few weeks. Instead, it took him 10 years, and that unforgettable journey became known as the Odyssey. Odysseus' first great challenge came when he and his men entered the cave of a terrifying one-eyed giant named Polyphemus, a Cyclops. At first, the cave seemed empty, but when the giant returned, he trapped the entrance with a massive boulder and began eating Odysseus' men one by one. Knowing they couldn't defeat the monster with strength alone, Odysseus relied on his intelligence. He offered the Cyclops strong wine until he fell asleep. Then he and his remaining men sharpened a wooden stake and drove it into the giant's single eye, blinding him. To escape the sealed cave, Odysseus tied his men beneath the bellies of sheep. When Polyphemus led his flock out to graze, he only felt the sheep's backs, never realizing the Greeks were hiding underneath. They escaped, but as his ship sailed away, Odysseus proudly revealed his real name. It was a costly mistake. Polyphemus was the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. Enraged, Poseidon cursed Odysseus, ensuring that every mile of his journey home would be filled with suffering. The curse brought endless dangers. Odysseus encountered the Sirens, whose beautiful songs lured sailors to their deaths. To survive, he ordered his crew to fill their ears with beeswax while they tied him tightly to the ship's mast. No matter how much he begged to be released, they ignored him until the danger had passed. He later faced the powerful witch Circe, who turned men into animals, and navigated between Scylla, a six-headed sea monster, and Charybdis, a monstrous whirlpool capable of swallowing entire ships. Every decision came at a terrible cost, and one by one, Odysseus lost all of his companions. After 10 years of wandering, he finally reached his homeland of Ithaca. But home had changed. Everyone believed he had died. Dozens of arrogant nobles had taken over his palace, hoping to marry his loyal wife, Penelope, and claim his kingdom. Disguised as an old beggar, Odysseus secretly entered his own home. No one recognized him. Then Penelope announced a contest. Whoever could string Odysseus's legendary bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads would become her husband. Every suitor failed. Then the old beggar stepped forward. With effortless strength, he strung the bow and fired the arrow perfectly through all 12 axes. In that moment, everyone realized the truth. The beggar was Odysseus. Together with his son Telemachus, he defeated the suitors and reclaimed his throne. So ended one of the greatest adventures ever written. But one question still remains. Did the Trojan War and the Odyssey really happen? Historians continue to debate that mystery, while archaeological discoveries suggest that a city resembling ancient Troy once existed. The gods, monsters, and magical creatures are widely considered mythical. Many scholars believe these epics blend real historical events with centuries of storytelling. Whether they are history, myth, or something in between, these stories have survived for nearly 3,000 years. They remind us that strength may win battles, but wisdom, courage, and perseverance are what truly bring heroes home. And perhaps that is why the names Achilles, Hector, Helen, and Odysseus are still remembered today.